Today, the Supreme Court greenlit a change in our country's campaign financing laws that has a long, winding, toxic history. Because a decade ago, and this is an interesting part of it, I should say, a decade ago, Democrats and the Tea Party even teamed up to fight it. That was back in December of 2015, and Senator Mitch McConnell, yes, that guy, who was then the Republican leader, slipped an obscure measure into a must-pass omnibus spending bill. And the measure would have allowed unlimited spending by political parties in coordination with candidates. Now, at the time, political parties like the RNC and the DNC were only allowed to coordinate about $50,000 worth of spending per House race. So political parties could definitely put their thumb on the scale a little bit, but they couldn't tip it all that much. McConnell, though, wanted to get rid of limits like that. He wanted political parties and, more importantly, party leaders like himself to be able to put their full fist on the scale, so that they could have more control over their members and also over who even became members. And that's why the Tea Party opposed that measure. Some members didn't want to fight against a Republican National Party that could spend unlimited money to defeat them and other Tea Partiers in primaries. They didn't want to disempower super PACs who were helping elect them. And they didn't want to be beholden to D.C. power brokers like Mitch McConnell. That's why that measure failed back in 2015. And then in 2022, J.D. Vance took up the mantle of this fight when he saw what a disadvantage Republicans had in grassroots fundraising. And then finally today, the conservative majority on the Supreme Court finally gave the Republican Party leaders what they actually wanted. Political parties are now able to spend an unlimited amount in coordination with individual political campaigns. And not only does that immediately make both the RNC and the DNC more important, not only does it give the parties the ability to play kingmaker and give huge advantages to incumbents potentially and the party establishment if they choose to, but prior to today, the fundraising that mattered the most was at the individual candidate level. It's still hugely important, but it was from the grassroots donors who are matching the energy we see out in the country. That was really the core of the most important fundraising. And Democratic candidates have been way more successful on that front, outraising their Republican opponents in a lot of unexpected races in parts of the country. But now that political parties can coordinate spending directly with candidates as much as they want, the size of the war chests of the RNC and the DNC really start to matter. And that puts, Jamie Raskin referenced this too, and that puts Republicans at a huge advantage on that front headed into the midterms. And the Democrats have a lot of other advantages, including energy and enthusiasm and grassroots fundraising. But I should note, in May, the RNC reported that it had $125 million in its war chest. The DNC, on the other hand, reported that it was $3 million in debt. So with these new rules and a fundraising gap that big, what should Democrats be doing right now to regain power in November? What else? What different, if anything? Joining me now is Jim Messina, former campaign manager for Barack Obama. Okay, there is so much to say about this. I can tell you, we have been discussing this on the team all day today. But I just give a summary of this ruling. What does it mean? You've run so many campaigns. What does it mean in practice for the campaigns this year?
It's a great night for the Republican candidates. And the reason why, Jen, I'm really glad you led with the Mitch McConnell thing. He spent 10 years trying to do two things. One, to blunt the Democrats' advantage with small donor finances, where we have a massive advantage because we have the grassroots and they don't. And two, he wants to empower the national committees because he wants to decide who the candidates are. And so this is exactly what he's going to get. You know, right now, all three Republican committees, the RNC and both the House and Senate committees, have about $250 million cash on hand. Democrats have about half of that. They now can transfer whatever they want to these individual races. So let me give you an example. In the Texas Senate race, where you and I have been talking for a long time, there's more grassroots enthusiasm about the Democratic candidate than in any race in the country. He has a massive advantage in fundraising because he's getting checks from my mother-in-law online, $5 and $10 every time she sees him on TV. She gives him a little bit more money. That advantage is now gone because Mitch McConnell and the Republicans can now transfer the Republican candidate whatever they want. And more importantly, on the very first day when they're recruiting the Republican candidate, they can say, you're our candidate. There will be no primary because we are going to give you all of the money. So what do Democrats do? We do what we've always done, which is go back to the grassroots, go back to our own donors, and just be very clear about the stakes at hand here and say, we're going to need you you to dig a little bit deeper. We have the well that is the modern finance of campaigns, which is the internet. We just have to continue to rely on it. The other thing, more controversial, we've got to figure out is how to get the DNC back in some sort of shape where it can be helpful. You just showed the numbers. We cannot have a DNC that has a negative net balance when the Republicans have $125 million. We just can no longer afford to kind of laugh about how messy that operation is. Instead, we have to go fix it immediately.
I think everybody watching right now is like, yeah, how can it be fixed? What can be done? What should be done to fix it?
Well, there's a small amount of people who make this decision. I think the DNC members all need to be asked today and tomorrow, what is your plan? Like, whatever you're currently doing isn't working. We're not talking about personalities. Ken Martin's a great guy. We're just talking about what do we need to do to figure out how to get this committee to doing things. They've been transferring huge amounts of money to state parties. What is the accountability to that? How do those state parties help these local candidates? Isn't it probably better to transfer that same money to the candidates who are on the ballot in just a few months? We probably got to change that decision starting tomorrow just because of this Supreme Court decision, Jen.
Let me ask you about the Trump side of this, because as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong here, this doesn't change the fact that you can't, as a donor, earmark money when you give it to a party committee to go to a particular candidate. But, you know, a lot of your money can go to a particular candidate. When you think about what Trump could do here, he essentially, any president oversees essentially the party apparatus, the RNC or the DNC. Where does your head go in terms of what he could step up fundraising for the RNC? They already have an advantage. What else could he do here to try to take advantage of this ruling?
This just makes it so much more easy for him to coordinate with his billionaires. I mean, just the numbers this year, Jen, are staggering. Republican big donors this year, led by Elon Musk and the Adelson gaming empire in Nevada, have given $880 million in big contributions to the Republican side. The Democrats are less than a third of that from big checks. So what he can do now tomorrow is start calling everyone saying, hey, give everything you can to the RNC because we're going to transfer it directly to these races. He doesn't need to go through the super PACs. This, unfortunately, didn't get rid of the super PACs, which you and I would have done. So instead, what this ruling does is just put more money into the entire system and allow them to earmark it directly to these campaigns. It also makes a whole bunch of people in Washington, D.C. much more important than they were yesterday because they decide where the money goes, not the individual donors.
It does have a little bit of a backroom deal with cigars feeling to it in some regard. It doesn't change, I should note, how much the max amount that individuals can give to the overall party apparatus. But it means they know that the money can go directly to candidates instead of state parties, which they may prefer. Let me ask you just about the impact you foresee on the DNC, on kind of the Democratic Party in primaries, because this also could mean that if the DNC chose to, they could get engaged in primary elections on behalf of incumbents. What are the other impacts we haven't talked about?
Well, first of all, the Democratic senatorial and House committees are going to probably now have more impetus to get involved in these things. The DCCC has gotten involved in primaries this year, very controversially. You and I both know Democrats hate it when D.C. weighs in, but they've been very forthright about saying there are some campaigns we have to win, and we're going to go in and pick a bigger candidate. Right now, it was just them saying, hey, this is our preferred candidate. Now, Jen, they can go in with a checkbook and say, not only are you our preferred candidate, we're going to put all of our money behind you. And that is just a big moment. And again, back to the DNC is going to have to be able to directly transfer to these campaigns. And they're going to have to kind of stop what they've been doing and reassess, not because they're good people or bad people, or not because what they've been doing is good or bad. The rules changed today, and we all got to roll with it. You and I were part of 2 Obama campaigns that didn't always like the rules, but we had to make very tough decisions to win a presidential election. And I think that's what Democrats are going to do starting tomorrow morning.
Yeah, you can't win a campaign with one arm tied behind your back, playing by old sets of rules or rules you wished were in place. Jim Messina, thank you as always.
Thank you.